Putin Bad News.The leader of Russia's anti-Putin force has warned that raids on the border will continue. The leader of the Russian fighters who invaded Russian territory from Ukraine this week threatened more such raids in the near future. Russian Volunteer Corps, RVC commander Denis Kapustin addressed reporters on the Ukrainian side of the border with Russia on Wednesday, a day after Moscow claimed to have repelled a nearly 24-hour-long attack on Russia's Belgorod region. "I think you will see us again on that side," said Kapustin, a notoriously right-wing Russian nationalist who introduced himself to the press with the handle White Rex. The Moscow-born Kapustin declared, "The operation is ongoing, surrounded by about 30 concealed soldiers. Every operation that takes place on Russian territory forces the military leadership to move a large amount of forces precisely to that quadrant, therefore laying bare some parts of the front, parts of the border," he said. "We have our sights set on expanding into uncharted regions of the Russian Federation in the near future. It would serve you well to exercise a little patience and hold off for a couple of days." On Monday and Tuesday, Kapustin's RVC and the Allied Freedom of Russia Legion, both of which are active in Ukraine, claimed responsibility for the invasion. Kyiv claimed it had nothing to do with the attack, suggesting that anti-Putin Russian forces had launched it against Russian military forces. Kapustin said he wanted to inspire other Russians to take action by exposing the injustice and torture they were witnessing under Putin. His goal was to show Russians that they could stand up to Putin and that his power was limited. "Ukrainian authorities did encourage us," Kapustin said, "but they did not supply weapons, equipment, or instructions for this mission." According to Vyacheslav Gladkov, governor of the Belgorod region, 2 women were killed and at least 12 people were injured in the cross-border attack. On Thursday, local Russian media also reported that the attack had destroyed 200 homes and damaged an additional 500. According to news accounts, some displaced Belgorod residents still have not returned to their homes in the Gravoron district, where unexploded ordnance was left on the streets and in buildings. Russia's armed forces claimed they killed 70 Ukrainian nationalists on a sabotage mission to divert attention from Russia's gains in the bombed-out city of Bakhmut by routing the raiders with artillery and air attacks. Kapustin reported that his team had lost a total of 2 men to death and 10 more to injuries. The Ukrainian armed forces, of course, also helped care for our wounded. But if the Ukrainians become more involved than this, it will be difficult for me to carry out my plans, he said. "Beyond the borders of our state, we make all of our own choices." He said, "Of course we can enlist the aid of our Ukrainian comrades and friends in our preparations." While Kapustin's daring cross-border raid has embarrassed the Kremlin, it has also raised questions about the involvement of far-right Russian nationalists in Ukraine and how this may affect the willingness of Western allies to supply Kyiv with weapons. He has been described as a Russian neo-Nazi by the Anti-Defamation League in the United States. Kapustin was upfront about his conservative ideology. Someone also asked him if being called a Nazi bothered him. "My opinions are what they are, and they are patriotic, traditionalist, and conservative. I'm not the type to be seen waving a swastika-adorned flag or flashing the Nazi salute. Why then do you refer to me as that?" Kapustin repeatedly avoided answering questions about media reports that his fighters had used U.S. military equipment in the raid on Russian territory. The United States had provided this equipment to Ukraine so that it could defend itself against Russia's invasion. "The source of my arms is completely transparent," he lamented, unfortunately, not from the Western partners. According to him, Western military hardware was captured by the Russians during the battle for Bakhmut and is now available on the black market. "Unfortunately, Western military aid is constantly being raided, as I believe I explained. A lot of armored vehicles, American armored vehicles, were raided by Russian forces in Bakhmut, for example," he said. On Wednesday, U.S. officials said they were investigating claims that American vehicles had been used inside Russian territory. The Kremlin claimed that the use of U.S. military equipment in the cross-border attack demonstrated the expanding involvement of the West in the conflict.